Civil versus criminal, the real story behind Trump's cases. In 2024 and 2025, the name Donald Trump was once again at the center of America's biggest legal and political storm. New York Attorney General Letitia James accused Trump of massive financial fraud, while at the same time Manhattan prosecutors brought 34 felony charges against him in a completely separate case. The headlines were loud, but the truth was often lost in the noise. Today we're breaking down what really happened, what Judge Engoron ruled, how the civil fraud case differs from the criminal conviction, and why millions of Americans see this as more than law, but politics. It began with a civil investigation led by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Her office accused Donald Trump, his sons, and the Trump Organization of inflating property values to secure better loans and insurance rates, what she called persistent and repeated fraud. The case wasn't criminal. No one was going to prison. But it aimed to hit Trump where it hurt, his wallet and his business empire. Judge Arthur Engoron, a New York Supreme Court judge, ruled that Trump had indeed committed fraud by exaggerating asset values in statements to banks and insurers. He ordered Trump to pay hundreds of millions in penalties and temporarily banned him from doing business in New York. Trump called it a witch hunt, and many agreed, saying this wasn't about protecting investors, but about destroying a political opponent through the courts. But the story didn't end there. In August 2025, a New York appeals court threw out the massive penalty, calling it excessive and disproportionate. The judges kept the finding of fraud, but removed most of the punishment. In other words, the claim of wrongdoing stood, but the financial destruction Letitia James wanted didn't survive higher court scrutiny. Now, about those 34 felonies you keep hearing about. That case had nothing to do with Letitia James or Judge Engoron. It came from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, led by Alvin Bragg. Prosecutors claimed Trump falsified business records to hide hush money payments made before the 2016 election. In May 2024, a New York jury found him guilty on all 34 counts. Again, no violence, no victims, no stolen money, just record-keeping charges that many legal scholars say would never have been filed against anyone else. When you zoom out, it's hard to ignore the pattern. 3 different New York officials, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, and Judge Engoron, all targeting the same man, each using the legal system in ways many see as political lawfare. Trump's supporters call it selective prosecution. His opponents call it justice at last. But either way, it's unprecedented. No other former president in U.S. history has faced simultaneous criminal and civil attacks like this. Whether you agree or disagree with Trump, one thing is clear. This battle isn't just about him. It's about the future of the justice system, and whether it can ever be trusted again. What started as a civil fraud suit became a national spectacle, blending law, politics, and media in ways we've never seen before. The Letitia James case and the 34 felony convictions will go down in history as turning points, not just for Donald Trump, but for America's trust in its institutions. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives on politics, power, and truth. I'm Natasha, and this is The Truth Unfiltered. Subscribe for more political analysis and current events.
Do him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely do him. We're going to be a real pain in the He's going to know my name personally.
That man in the White House who can't go a day without threatening our fundamental rights.
Yes, we need to focus on Donald Trump and his abuses. We need to follow his money. We need to find out where he's laundered money. We need to find out whether or not he's engaged in conspiracy.
It's important that everyone understand that the days of Donald Trump are coming to an end.
I look forward to going into the office of Attorney General every day, suing him, defending your rights, and then going home.
The President of the United States has complained that I'm engaging in some sort of political witch hunt, that I've got some personal vendetta against him, that I campaigned against him. That is not true.
This illegitimate president who sits in the White House. That president, because he's not my president, he's an illegitimate president. His days are numbered. His days are numbered.
We've got to get ready to mobilize, and we've got to get ready to agitate and irritate until victory is won, but more importantly, until Trump is defeated.
We will all rise up and resist this man. And ultimately, we'll bring him down.
This illegitimate president, I'm going to give you the same level of respect that you gave to President Obama, and that is absolutely no respect at all.
Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. And the days of Donald Trump are numbered. Lock him up. Lock him up. What? Lock him up. What? Lock him up. What? Lock him up. What?
That is not true.
The club generated annual revenues of less than $25 million and should have been valued at more than valued at about $75 million. However, Mar-a-Lago was valued as high as $739 million. Mr. Trump used inappropriate schemes to inflate the value of his other golf clubs. He valued the clubs based on their fixed assets. In other words, the money spent to acquire and to maintain them, despite being informed by valuation professionals that this practice was inappropriate for a club operating as an ongoing business. He again added a brand premium when determining the value of the club, but claimed in his statements that he did not.
Now, I'm going to say something controversial, even though I'm being taped. Juries get it wrong a lot. That's my own opinion. I do only civil trials, personal injury cases, contract disputes. But I've had situations where, like, oh my heaven's sake, how could they have thought that? Well, I have a tool that I can deal with that. It's called jury notwithstanding the verdict, judgment notwithstanding the verdict. I can say there is no possible way that a reasonable jury would have reached that conclusion. And all right, am I following the law or am I making law? Okay, I'm following law. I'm an impartial referee, but it's hard to factor out my own emotions. And I have tools. Somebody can say, well, Your Honor, you have to throw out this case because it's just like another case. Well, is it just like another case? What if the defendant was wearing a red sweater instead of a blue sweater?
Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct. We have had available to the office additional evidence that was not in the office's possession prior to my time here.
How much did this trial cost the state of New York?
Oh my God!
How much did they spend?
Millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars. How much time did the state of New York, the officials, spend instead of tracking down killers and everything else? The 34 felonies are just because they kept counting the same felony over and over again. Yeah, well, he did that on Tuesday, too. Well, he did it on Wednesday and Thursday.
Even worse than that, Glenn, it was each count of this, each payment, right? You have the payment that went to Michael Cohen was, essentially what they were saying was a crime, which again is idiotic. But each
and it was
one
a monthly payment,
right? A monthly payment. So really, what we're talking about is one payment, right? Well, there's one instance of this if you really want to go to it. But then they decided to expand it to 12 monthly payments, and then on top of that, they said not the payment. The invoice was a separate crime for each payment. And then I think the recording of it in the ledger was a third crime for each of these. So it came to 34 because of a couple of details on a couple of the months. But the bottom line is that's how they came up with 34 felonies. They just wanted that number to be high. And they wanted that number to be high enough so that you in Pennsylvania or you in Nevada would not vote for Donald Trump. This, of course, backfired enormously, and you're left with unconditional discharge.
The value of the house,
the Mar-a-Lago. The judge ruled that it was worth $18 million. It's 20 acres in like the most expensive real estate in that area. Like a house down the street from it, much smaller. It's just sold for $50 million.
Wow.
Even if Forbes said it's worth somewhere between, see what Forbes said. I think they said it was worth between $300 and $700 million. And they were saying that it's worth $18 million. It's like they don't even try to pretend.
Yeah.
Like
why does no one trust the mainstream?
If the guy says his house is worth $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
And then you come along and say, no, it's worth like $800 million. Forbes says it's worth as much as $700 million. We'll call it $700 million. Now you got a reasonable argument.
Yeah.
But if you say $18 million, like, you got it. That's like a palace. That place is a palace. It's 20 acres. Get the fuck out of here. This is crazy. You can't do that. That's like too obvious. That you don't give a fuck about the truth.
They don't.
You don't give a fuck about
the fact that the Trump sons, the Trump organization, did not try to have this conspiracy to defraud banks and insurers to get special rates on their properties by inflating those financial statements. Now, if you remember, Don Jr. was on the stand as a state's witness just about 2 weeks ago, and he distanced himself from being, one of the top heads of Trump organization and preparing those financial statements. So when he takes the stand for the fact that the Trump sons, the Trump organization, did not try